What did you
14-year-old
do?
Harper had
I
been
didn't
hiding
mean
in the
to. She just
basement for
fell.
2 weeks when she found the drawings. Maps of the house, every room labeled in shaky 8-year-old handwriting, exits marked in red crayon. Today's date circled in black marker so many times the paper had torn clean through. Then she smelled it. Gasoline, sharp and wrong and deadly, seeping through the floorboards above her head like poison through skin. The second floor exploded into flames at exactly 5 o'clock on a Tuesday evening in November. And the sound was nothing like the movies. No dramatic whoosh, no cinematic roar. Just a sudden hungry sound like a living thing waking up and deciding to eat everything in its path. 8-year-old Ren's screams pierced through the inferno, high and terrified and calling a name that shouldn't have meant anything to anyone in that house. Harper, not mommy, not daddy, not help or please or God, just Harper. The name of a ghost. The name of a 14-year-old homeless girl who'd been living in the basement for 14 days, surviving on stolen warmth and the kindness of a child who didn't know better than to feed crackers to strangers hiding in the dark. Harper could have run. The basement window was 3 steps away, 3 steps to the alley, 3 steps to invisibility, to safety, to the frozen Chicago streets where she'd learned to disappear so completely that the world forgot she existed. 3 months homeless, 17 abandoned buildings, 23 nights she'd nearly frozen to death before finding this place, this basement, this furnace that kept her alive through nights when the temperature dropped low enough to kill. But Ren was screaming her name. And 4 minutes, that's all it takes. 4 minutes without oxygen for a brain to stop working, for a heart to forget how to beat, for a child to become a memory instead of a person. 4 minutes for everything that makes someone alive to just stop. Harper had exactly 4 minutes to decide who she was going to be. The invisible girl who survived by running. Or something else. Something she'd never been before. Something that required being seen. She chose the fire. But first there were the 14 days that led to this moment. 14 days of learning to be a ghost in someone else's house. 14 days of building a friendship in the dark with a little girl who saw her when no one else did. 14 days that would end in flames and choices, and a truth that would shatter everything Harper thought she knew about who she was and where she came from. Welcome to a story about the invisible ones, the forgotten, the kids society erases and steps over and leaves to freeze. Subscribe right now because what you're about to witness isn't just about survival. It's about a 14-year-old girl who saved a life and discovered a family in the process. And before we go any further, let's take a moment for what matters most. Heavenly Father, we come before you now asking for your divine protection over everyone listening to this story. Bless their families, Lord. Heal their bodies. Provide for their needs and give them peace that surpasses understanding. Let your presence be felt in their lives today and surround them with your favor. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Now let's go back to where it started. 14 days before the fire, the night Harper broke into a Hells Angels basement and accidentally became part of a family she never knew existed. The emergency exit window shattered at 11:47 on a November night, cold enough to see your breath turn to ice crystals in the air. Harper dropped into the basement of the house on Riverside Grove with practiced silence, her sneakers hitting concrete with barely a whisper. The sneakers were 2 sizes too big, taken from a Goodwill donation bin 3 weeks ago. Soles worn so thin she could feel every pebble through the rubber. But they were better than nothing. Better than the bare feet she'd had in August when her mother died blue-faced in a supermarket bathroom with a needle in her arm and foam at the corners of her mouth. Jolene. Her mother's name had been Jolene, though she'd used at least 6 different last names that Harper could remember. They'd moved 17 times in 14 years. Motels with stained carpets and locks that didn't work. Cars when the money ran out. Shelters when Jolene was sober enough to fake her way through intake interviews. And when Jolene disappeared on benders that lasted days, sometimes weeks, Harper learned to make herself small, invisible. The kind of kid social workers' eyes slid right past because acknowledging her meant paperwork and phone calls in a system too broken to care about one more mouth it couldn't feed. 3 months since the overdose. 3 months of Chicago streets teaching Harper lessons no 14-year-old should have to learn. The world doesn't save girls like her. It erases them. forgets them, steps over their frozen bodies on winter mornings, and keeps walking to jobs and families and lives that matter. The newspaper called them statistics. The shelters called them cases. The cops called them runaways. Nobody called them by name. But Harper had survived. She was good at surviving, good at noticing things other people missed, good at being invisible when invisible meant safe, good at reading rooms and faces and the distance between a door and the person standing closest to it. Skills learned not in school, but in the particular classroom of growing up with an addict who could turn from mother to monster between one heartbeat and the next. The basement smelled like motor oil and old leather and something metallic she couldn't quite place. Not blood, mud. She knew what blood smelled like. This was different, sharper, chemical. Her eyes adjusted to the darkness, finding shapes in the shadows cast by a single bulb hanging from exposed rafters. Motorcycle parts lined industrial metal shelves along the far wall. Chrome exhaust pipes catching what little light existed. Engine blocks wrapped in plastic like sleeping machines waiting to be woken up. Tools hung on pegboards with the kind of military precision that made Harper's survival instincts fire every alarm they had. This wasn't just any house. Someone lived here who valued order. Someone organized. Someone who would notice if a single wrench was moved a quarter inch from its assigned spot. Someone dangerous. But the weather report on the television in the shelter lobby that morning had said 8 degrees tonight. 8 degrees Fahrenheit. Cold enough to kill a homeless girl in her sleep. Cold enough that hypothermia in a stranger's basement was better than death in a doorway. And this basement had a furnace. Old, rattling, probably inefficient, but warm, gloriously, beautifully, magnificently warm. Harper moved through the shadows like smoke, cataloging everything, because her life had always depended on knowing exits and hiding spots and whether the people above her head were the kind who checked their basement at 3 in the morning. Water heater in the corner, rust stains spreading across its base, utility sink with a dripping faucet that counted seconds in the dark like a metronome nobody asked for, a workbench covered in motorcycle manuals, pages worn soft with use, grease stains on covers showing Harley-Davidson logos and engine diagrams Harper couldn't begin to understand, and boxes, stacked against the wall in careful towers, each one labeled in angry red marker. Club business, do not touch. Property of Hell's Angels. MC Chicago chapter. Harper's blood went cold despite the warmth of the furnace. Hell's Angels Motorcycle Club. The kind of people who appeared on news reports about bar fights and federal investigations and territory disputes that ended with bodies and burned buildings. The kind of people who didn't take kindly to strangers in their basement. The kind of people who carried guns and figured out questions later. She should leave. Climb back through that window and find another squat, another abandoned building, another place to freeze slowly instead of quickly. But then the furnace kicked on with a mechanical groan that sounded like salvation, and heat poured into the basement in waves that made Harper's frozen fingers ache as blood returned to extremities that had been going numb. 8 degrees outside, survival inside. The mathematics weren't complicated. She found her hiding spot behind the furnace, a gap between the hot metal and the concrete wall just wide enough for a 14-year-old girl who'd gotten very good at making herself small. She curled into that space, pulling her torn jacket tight around shoulders and that showed bone through skin because she hadn't had a real meal in 4 days. Her stomach cramped with hunger, so constant it had become background noise, like the ringing in your ears after an explosion. Always there, always reminding you that your body was eating itself because nothing else would. Above her footsteps crossed the floor, heavy boots, deliberate, weighted with purpose and the kind of physical authority that comes from being large enough to not worry about what's in the dark. A man's voice, rough like gravel, scraped over asphalt, echoed through the ceiling. "Ren, lights out now." A small voice answered. Young, female, frightened in a way that made Harper's chest tighten with recognition, because she knew that fear, had lived inside that fear. The fear of disappointing the one person who was supposed to protect you. "But Daddy, I'm scared." Scared of what? The fire dream, Mahanan. It's getting worse. Silence stretched so long, Harper thought the conversation had ended. Then the man's voice softened in a way that surprised her, Like watching a wolf try to be gentle and not quite knowing how. Like someone who'd learned hardness first and tenderness as a second language he didn't speak fluently. Baby girl, that was just a nightmare. Nothing's gonna hurt you here. You're safe, I promise. You promise you won't leave again. Like you left before, the pause felt heavy, loaded with history. Harper couldn't see but could feel pressing down through the floorboards like weight given shape. I'm not going anywhere, not anymore. Sleep now. Okay, Daddy. Love you too, kid. The boots walked away. A door closed somewhere upstairs. Then nothing but the mechanical hum of the furnace and Harper's own heartbeat hammering against her ribs. She waited 2 hours before allowing herself to sleep. Even then, her dreams were cold. Day 3 in the basement, Harper learned the house's rhythm, the way a prisoner learns guard rotations. The man, whoever he was, left every morning at exactly 6:15. Motorcycle engine roaring to life in the driveway, loud enough to rattle the basement windows and vibrate through Harper's bones. The sound was different from cars. Deeper. Angrier. The sound of power barely contained. He'd be gone until late afternoon, sometimes later. The girl Wren stayed home during the day. Homeschooled Harper guessed from the lack of morning rush and school bus sounds. Sometimes Harper heard her talking to herself upstairs, playing with toys. The one-sided conversations of an only child creating friends from imagination because the real world hadn't given her any. Sometimes crying, soft and muffled, like she was trying to hide it even from herself. Sometimes just silence, which somehow felt worse than the crying because silence meant thinking. And an 8-year-old shouldn't have thoughts heavy enough to create that kind of quiet. Harper should leave, find another squat, another abandoned building, another basement that didn't belong to a Hell's Angel with a daughter who had nightmares about fire. But the cold outside was killing people. She'd seen it on news broadcasts through shop windows as she walked past, trying to look like she had somewhere to go instead of nowhere at all. 3 homeless deaths last week. Hypothermia, frostbite. A woman found frozen solid under the Roosevelt Bridge. Ice crystals in her hair like diamonds nobody would ever want. Skin blue-white like marble carved by a sculptor who only knew how to make monuments to suffering. So Harper stayed, invisible in the basement, rationing water from the utility sink, drinking from cupped hands in the dead of night when the house above breathed with sleep, surviving 1 hour at a time because that's all she knew how to do anymore. 1 hour, then another until days became a week and the basement became less like a hiding spot and more like the closest thing to home she'd had since Jolene was still alive enough to pretend she cared. Then came the screaming. 2:34 in the morning on the 7th night. Harper jolted awake to the sound of a child's terror ripping through the floorboards like claws through paper. Not the normal sounds of nightmares she'd been hearing every night. This was different. Raw. Primal. The sound of someone drowning inside their own head. No, the fire. Please, somebody help me. Don't let me burn. Please, the smoke. I can't breathe. Uncle Ray, please don't. Please, the fire, the fire. The boots thundered across the floor above. Fast. Panicked. A door crashed open hard enough that Harper heard something fall and shatter. Wren, wake up, baby. It's just a dream. You're not burning. You're safe. Come on, sweetheart. Wake up for Daddy, please. But the screaming didn't stop. It clawed at something deep in Harper's chest. A memory she kept buried under layers of survival and numbness, in the particular skill of not feeling things that would destroy her if she let them in. Her own mother thrashing in withdrawal. Begging for help Harper was too young to give. Screaming at demons only she could see. Jolene's hands clawing at her own skin, hard enough to draw blood. Jolene's eyes not seeing Harper at all, just seeing whatever hell lived inside her head. Harper pressed her palms against her ears, squeezed her eyes shut, made herself small, made herself nothing. But she couldn't unhear it. The sound burrowed into her skull and lived there. An 8-year-old girl screaming about fire and smoke, and someone named Uncle Ray who did something terrible enough to create nightmares this vivid, this consistent, this real. Every night after that, the nightmares came. Always around 2:30, always the same themes: fire, smoke, burning. Can't breathe, Uncle Ray. And every night the father would hold his daughter until the screaming dissolved into whimpers and finally silence. Harper found herself listening for it, waiting, worrying about a child she'd never seen, wondering what kind of trauma could be that consistent, that specific, that devastating. During the day, she explored the basement more carefully, found old newspapers in a recycling bin, read about the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, territory disputes, bar fights, federal investigations that went nowhere because nobody talked and everybody lawyered up. And buried in a 3-month-old edition of the Chicago Tribune, a small article about a club member named Caleb Hendricks who went by Iron. Recently returned to Chicago after years away, discovered he had a daughter, learning to be a single father, human interest angle on a biker trying to go straight. The pieces clicked together. The leather, the patches, the club boxes, the military precision of the tools. The way the man's voice carried authority, even when he was trying to be gentle. Harper was squatting in the house of the president of Hells Angels Chicago chapter. She should run, should disappear into the Chicago streets and never look back. Every survival instinct she'd honed over 3 months screamed at her to get out before those boots came down the basement stairs and discovered an intruder who'd been living in his house for a week. But where would she go? Every shelter was full. Every soup kitchen had lines around the block. Every other squat was either too cold or too dangerous, filled with men who looked at 14-year-old girls the way predators look at wounded things. And something about Wren's screams kept Harper frozen in place, unable to leave. The consistency of those nightmares. The way the father tried so hard to be gentle and didn't quite know how. The sound of a child drowning in memories no one could reach. On the 8th night, Harper made a decision that would change everything. She found the teddy bear while scavenging through the alley behind Riverside Grove Elementary School. Someone had left donation boxes outside the community center, probably for a charity drive that would never quite reach the people who needed it most, because charity has a way of getting lost between intention and execution. The bear was brown, missing one black button eye, stitching coming loose at the seams where stuffing threatened to escape. But it was soft, clean enough, the kind of thing a kid might hold on to in the dark when nightmares came calling and the adults couldn't make them stop. Harper thought about Wren's screams, about the fear in her voice when she called for help that never came fast enough, about being 8 years old and terrified of shadows and fire and things adults couldn't see, but children knew were real. At 3 in the morning, while the house breathed with sleep, Harper crept upstairs for the first time. Her hands shook so badly she could barely grip the handrail. Every creak of wood felt like a gunshot in the silence. Every shadow looked like someone waiting to catch her, waiting to end the brief illusion that she was safe. The house was different up here, lived in, warm, filled with the small details of normal life she'd almost forgotten existed. Photographs on the walls showed groups of men in leather vests, arms around each other's shoulders, faces hard but smiling. Brothers, that's what they called each other. Brotherhood built on loyalty and violence, and codes Harper didn't understand but could feel the weight of in every picture. A living room with a couch covered in motorcycle magazines, grease stains on the armrests, a kitchen with a child's drawing stuck to the refrigerator with magnets, stick figures holding hands under a smiling sun. The word family written in crayon across the top in letters that wobbled with effort. Harper found the door at the end of the hallway. Pink paint slightly chipped at the corners, a hand-drawn sign in crayon taped to the wood. Wren's room. No boys allowed except Daddy. She set the teddy bear gently against the door, turned to leave, and froze. Wren stood in the doorway of her room, materialized from shadows like a ghost herself. 8 years old, small and pale in unicorn pajamas that had been washed so many times the colors were fading to gray. Dark circles under eyes too old for her face, staring at Harper with the kind of fear that could shatter glass or stop hearts. Harper couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Her entire body went cold. If this child screamed, Harper was finished, arrested, thrown into juvenile detention, or worse because the man upstairs, the Hell's Angel, the father who carried a gun. He would not be gentle with strangers who crept into his house at 3 in the morning. But Wren didn't scream. She looked at the teddy bear lying at her feet, looked at Harper, looked back at the bear. Her expression shifted from fear to confusion to something else. Curiosity, recognition. The look of someone who knew what it meant to be scared and alone and different. Is that for me? Her voice was barely a whisper, soft, careful, like she was afraid speaking too loud might break whatever was happening. Harper nodded. Her own voice had abandoned her completely. Thank you. Wren said it so quietly Harper almost didn't hear. The girl picked up the bear and hugged it to her chest, one small hand covering the missing eye like she could protect it from whatever had hurt it before. What's your name? Harper. The word came out barely louder than a breath. I'm Wren. Do you live in our basement? She should lie, should make up a story, should run. But something in Wren's eyes, the same deep loneliness Harper saw every time she caught her reflection in a store window, made her tell the truth. Yes, Wren tilted her head, processing this information with the strange, flexible logic of children who haven't yet learned that some things are supposed to be impossible. Are you a ghost? I thought I heard someone downstairs sometimes, but Daddy said it was just the furnace making noises. No, just homeless. The word hung between them. Heavy, real, impossible to pretend away. Wren's expression softened in a way that made Harper's chest ache. My daddy says homeless people need help, that people forget about them, but they shouldn't. Are you hungry? Harper's stomach answered with a growl loud enough to make Wren's eyes widen. The girl disappeared into a room and returned 30 seconds later with treasures clutched in both hands. A juice box with the bendy straw still attached. A sleeve of crackers slightly crushed but unopened. A granola bar that probably cost more than Harper had seen in a month. I'm not supposed to have snacks after bedtime, but you look like you need them way more than me. Harper took them with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The crackers felt like gold in her palms. Thank you. You don't have to. I know. Wren interrupted with the confidence of someone who'd made up her mind and wouldn't be argued with. But I want to. Nobody should be hungry. That's what Daddy says. He gets really mad when people are mean to homeless people downtown. She hugged her new teddy bear tighter, covering that missing eye. Don't tell my daddy you're here, okay? He gets really mad about strangers in our house. He's in a motorcycle club, the Hells Angels. They're really, really tough. He carries a gun. I won't tell anyone, I promise. Good. Wren smiled for the first time. Small and tentative, but real. I like having a friend, even a secret ghost friend who's not really a ghost. She went back to bed, closing her door softly, leaving Harper standing in the dark hallway holding crackers and a juice box and a granola bar. Realizing she just made the most dangerous friend of her entire life. That night, Harper sat behind the furnace eating crackers one at a time, making each one last, tasting salt and flour and something else she couldn't name at first. It took her 3 crackers to realize what it was. Kindness, the specific flavor of someone giving you something not because they had to, not because a system required it, not because a social worker checked a box on a form, but because an 8-year-old girl looked at a stranger in the dark and decided that hunger was wrong and she could do something about it. Harper cried for the first time in 3 months, silent tears that ran down her soot-streaked face and dripped onto the concrete floor. Not because she was sad, because she'd forgotten what it felt like to matter to someone, even someone small, even someone who thought she might be a ghost. The next morning, she left the purple flower from Grant Park outside Wren's door. It was the only thing she had worth giving. And when she came back that night, there was a note written in crayon on construction paper, taped to the outside of the door where only someone coming from the basement would see it. Dear ghost friend, the flower's beautiful. I put it in water on my nightstand. It's the only purple thing in my room. Everything else is pink because Daddy thinks all girls like pink. I don't. I like purple and yellow, and the color leaves turn right before they fall. Do you have a favorite color? Love, Wren. Harper wrote back on the back of a receipt she found in the recycling. Blue. Like the sky looks right before sunrise. When everything is quiet and you're the only person awake in the whole city, and for just a second you feel like the world belongs to you. The next night, there was a blue crayon sitting on top of the food, and a note that said, now you can write me back in your favorite color. They built a secret language out of necessity and kindness. Every night, Wren would leave food outside her door. Crackers, granola bars, Half sandwiches wrapped in napkins with peanut butter spread thick because 8-year-olds don't understand portion control. Apple slices in plastic bags. Once an entire slice of cold pizza that tasted like heaven. The cheese congealed in the pepperoni, leaving grease stains on Harper's fingers that she licked clean because waste wasn't something she could afford. In return, Harper would leave small treasures she found during daytime scavenging. A purple flower from Grant Park that hadn't quite died yet, petals still clinging to life despite the November cold. A smooth stone from the Chicago River shoreline, gray and round and perfect for holding when you needed something solid. A comic book someone had left on a bus stop bench, pages worn but readable. Superheroes saving the world in bright colors and impossible situations. Two broken kids helping each other survive in silence. Building a friendship neither of them had words for. Learning that sometimes family isn't about blood or last names or houses with picket fences. Sometimes family is crackers in the dark and teddy bears with missing eyes, and someone who sees you when the whole world has learned to look away. Harper learned things during those 2 weeks. Learned that Ren's mother had died 6 months ago in Denver. Car accident. Ren had whispered one night when Harper asked about the nightmares. Uncle Ray was driving. Mommy was trapped. The car caught fire. Uncle Ray got out. Mommy didn't. Learned that Ren's father, Iron. Everyone called him Iron, though Ren said his real name was Caleb. He had only just found out Ren existed. The mother had kept her a secret for 8 years. Didn't want motorcycle club life touching her daughter. But then she died, and there was nobody else. And Iron came to Denver and found a child he never knew he had. Grieving a mother she'd watched burn. The nightmares made sense now. Not prophetic, just traumatic. A little girl's brain trying to process horror no child should have to carry. Replaying it every night at 2:30 in the morning like a film projector stuck on the worst scene. Iron was trying his best to be a father, despite having no idea how. Harper heard him watching YouTube videos about how to braid hair. His rough voice repeating instructions to himself like studying for an exam in a subject he'd never known existed. Making school lunches with too much peanut butter and not enough jelly because he hadn't learned the ratio yet. Reading bedtime stories in a voice that didn't quite know how to be gentle, but was trying. Trying so hard it made something ache in Harper's chest that she didn't have a name for. She also learned that Iron's club brothers came by often. Their voices carried through the walls during late-night meetings in the living room. Loud, angry, words that made Harper press closer to the wall, even though eavesdropping on Hell's Angels was probably the fastest way to end up dead. Most nights the meetings were about money, territory, business. Harper didn't understand and didn't want to, but she paid attention anyway because information was currency on the streets, and you never knew what detail might save your life. She learned their names from the way they addressed each other. Deacon, the old one whose voice carried the weight of authority even when he wasn't the one speaking. Coyote, the one who talked too much and laughed at things that weren't funny. A man whose voice set off every alarm Harper had learned to trust during 3 months of reading dangerous people in dangerous places. One night on the 10th night, Harper heard something that made her blood freeze solid. A voice she didn't recognize, harder than the others. Cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Iron, you're compromised. The club can't have compromised leadership. Either the girl goes or you do. Simple math. You threatening my daughter. Iron's voice dropped to something deadly. Something that made Harper's skin prickle with recognition, because she'd heard that tone before. In shelters, on street corners, right before violence erupted. Because if you're threatening my daughter, we're going to have a very different conversation. One that ends with me burying every single one of you in Indiana cornfields, where nobody's going to find you until you're nothing but bones. That's real cute, real tough dad energy, but you can't watch her 24/7. Accidents happen, house fires, car crashes, kids disappear all the time in Chicago. Sad, but that's life. The threat hung in the air like smoke from a gun already fired. Get out of my house. The conversation ended with a door slamming hard enough to shake the walls and motorcycles roaring away into the November night, engines screaming fury and promises Harper didn't fully understand but felt in her bones. She didn't sleep that night. Neither did Ren. Harper heard her crying softly upstairs until sunrise. November 18th, 4:47 in the afternoon. Harper had made her decision. She was leaving tonight. The tension in the house had become suffocating, dangerous, like breathing in smoke before you see the flames. She'd lived through enough violence to recognize the warning signs. The way Iron had started checking window locks obsessively every night. The gun that appeared on the kitchen counter every morning. Black metal catching light like a promise. The club members who drove by slowly at random hours. Motorcycles idling outside the house. Watching. Always watching. Harper was packing her few belongings into the backpack she'd taken from a garage sale 3 months ago. A spare shirt, the comic book Ren had given her. A photograph of Jolene she'd salvaged from their old apartment before the landlord threw everything away. Jolene smiling in a way Harper barely remembered. Before the drugs, before the darkness. When she'd still been a person instead of a ghost haunting her own life. Harper held that photograph sometimes. Late at night when the furnace hummed and Ren slept peacefully above her and the house felt almost safe. She'd hold it up to the dim light and try to remember the woman in the picture. Try to find some connection between that smiling face and the hollowed-out version she'd watched die in a supermarket bathroom 3 months ago. Jolene at 20, Jolene at 25, Jolene at 30 when the needle tracks started appearing on her arms like a roadmap to nowhere. Jolene at 34, blue-faced on a tile floor, gone. The worst part wasn't the death. The worst part was that Harper had been relieved. For 3 seconds, standing in that bathroom doorway, looking at her mother's body, she had felt relief. And those 3 seconds would haunt her for the rest of her life, because what kind of daughter feels relief when her mother dies? What kind of person stands over a body and thinks at least it's over now? The kind of person who'd spent 14 years being invisible. The kind of person who'd learned that love and pain were the same word spelled differently. The kind of person who was now packing a backpack in a Hells Angels basement, trying to leave before the violence she could feel building in the walls above her head exploded into something she couldn't survive. That's when she heard it. The furnace kicked on with its usual mechanical groan. But this time something rattled in the ductwork. Something that didn't belong. Metal scraping against metal in a rhythm that was wrong. Curiosity overrode caution. Harper dragged a wooden crate beneath the heating vent and climbed up, reached inside. Her fingers closed around a stack of papers. Thick, textured like drawing paper. She pulled them out. Her hands were already shaking before she saw what they were. Ren's drawings, at least 20 of them hidden in the ductwork where no adult would ever look. But these weren't the cheerful crayon pictures stuck to the refrigerator upstairs. The stick figure families and smiling sons. These were different, darker, horrifying in their specificity and detail. They were maps, detailed architectural sketches of the house layout drawn with the careful precision of someone who'd studied every inch. Every room labeled in Ren's shaky handwriting. Kitchen, Daddy's room, my room, basement. Every window marked with numbers 1 through 12. Every door numbered separately. Every exit circled with red X marks the crayon pressed so hard it had torn through the paper. And in the corner of each drawing, a date circled over and over in black marker until the paper had torn completely through. November 18th, today's date. Harper flipped through the pages faster. More drawings. Flames rendered in orange and red and yellow crayon consuming stick figure houses. The colors layered so thick the wax had started to crack. Smoke drawn in thick black spirals covering entire pages. Stick figures running, falling, burning. Their mouths open in screams Ren had tried to capture with jagged lines. And one drawing that made Harper's blood turn to ice water. A detailed sketch of a man in a leather vest. The Hells Angels patch clearly visible even in crayon. The Death Head logo recognizable despite being drawn by an 8-year-old hand. The figure was pouring liquid from a container around the outside of a stick figure house. And in an upstairs window, a small stick figure watched. Hair drawn in yellow crayon. Arms raised like she was trying to warn someone. Above the figure, Ren had written her own name in desperate letters that got bigger and more frantic across the page. Ren, 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 Ren. These weren't nightmares, these were warnings. Evidence, a little girl trying to tell someone what was coming. Trying to leave clues for whoever might find them. Maybe even trying to leave them for Harper. The ghost in the basement who listened in the dark and understood what it meant to be scared and alone. Then Harper smelled it, faint at first, almost masked by the motor oil and leather that had become background noise, but unmistakable once she recognized it. Gasoline, sharp, chemical, wrong, seeping through the floorboards from somewhere upstairs, spreading, pooling, waiting. Harper dropped the drawings. They scattered across the concrete floor like fallen leaves. Wren's desperate warnings lying useless at her feet, because Harper had found them exactly on time and exactly too late. She ran for the stairs, taking them three at a time, her worn sneakers slipping on wood but catching, propelling her upward. Her feet hit the main floor just as she heard it, the soft whoosh of ignition, the sound of accelerant meeting flame, the sound of murder beginning. The second floor exploded into fire. Flames raced across the ceiling with impossible speed, feeding on accelerant trails painted in patterns designed to spread fast and burn hot and kill everything in their path. Smoke poured down the stairwell in thick black clouds, the kind of smoke that kills you before the flames ever touch your skin. Heat slammed into Harper like a physical force, and somewhere above, cutting through the roar of flames and the crash of something collapsing, Wren started screaming. Harper, Harper, help me. I can't get out. The door won't open. Harper, please. She was calling for her. Not her father, who was God knows where. Not 911. Not neighbors. Not God. Her. The homeless girl in the basement. The secret friend. The ghost who wasn't really a ghost. Harper looked at the basement door behind her. 3 steps. 4 if she was being careful. 4 steps to the alley. To outside. To safety. To invisibility again. She could disappear into Chicago and no one would ever know she'd been here. No one would blame her. No one would even remember her name. She looked at the burning staircase leading to the second floor where an 8-year-old girl was screaming her name like a prayer. And Harper made the choice that would change everything. She covered her face with her jacket and ran straight into the fire. The staircase was a tunnel of flame. Harper took the steps 2 at a time, jacket pressed against her mouth and nose, breathing through fabric that smelled like 3 months of street living. Her eyes streamed tears that evaporated in heat so intense it felt like standing inside the sun. Wallpaper peeled away in burning strips falling like toxic snow, each piece carrying embers that caught on Harper's clothes and burned through to skin. The smoke was thick, black, suffocating, the kind that fills your lungs with poison and makes you dizzy and confused and dead before the flames ever touch you. Harper felt it happening, felt her head getting light, felt her thoughts starting to scatter. Wren, where are you? My room. I can't open the door. Harper, please. Her voice came from the left. Harper crashed through the smoke, arms outstretched, her burned hands finding walls hot enough to blister skin on contact. The upstairs hallway was an inferno. Flames crawled across the ceiling, feeding on something that made them burn hotter, faster, hungrier than any natural fire should. The accelerant. The gasoline someone had painted in deliberate patterns designed for maximum destruction. This wasn't an accident. This was murder dressed up as tragedy. She found the door, the pink paint already blistering, bubbling under the heat. The handle scorched Harper's palm when she grabbed it, but she held on because pain was temporary and Wren dying was permanent. She twisted hard. Locked. Locked from the outside. Someone had locked an 8-year-old girl in her room and set the house on fire. Someone had planned this, had executed it like a military operation, had walked away while a child burned. Harper slammed her shoulder into the door. Once, twice, 3 times. The wood cracked but held. Behind her, part of the ceiling collapsed in a shower of sparks and burning timber, cutting off the route back to the stairs. She had seconds, maybe less. Wren, move away from the door. Harper kicked it with everything she had. All the anger of 3 months homeless, all the grief of watching her mother die, and all the fury of being invisible in a world that erased people like her and expected them to be grateful for the privilege. The door frame splintered. One more kick and it burst inward. Wood flying, hinges screaming. Wren was on the floor by her window, unconscious. Smoke inhalation had taken her. Her small body wasn't moving, wasn't breathing, The unicorn pajamas Harper had seen every night for 2 weeks were covered in soot. The colors turned black by smoke that had stolen all the oxygen from the room. 4 minutes. It had been 4 minutes since Harper heard the first scream from the basement. 4 minutes of brain-killing, life-stealing time. Harper scooped Wren up, so light it terrified her, like holding a bird with hollow bones, like holding something precious and breakable that the world wanted to destroy. The hallway was completely engulfed. The stairs had collapsed into burning rubble. No way down, no way to do this safely or smartly or with any plan that made sense. Harper ran to the window instead, still cradling Wren against her chest. The glass was hot enough to hurt through her jacket. She wrapped her fist in fabric already singed and punched through. Safety glass spider-webbed and fell away in chunks, some pieces catching her skin, drawing blood that mixed with burns and soot. Cold November air rushed in, feeding the fire behind her, making it roar louder. Harper looked out. Second story, 15 feet onto frozen grass and concrete, and November ground hard as stone. She could survive that. Probably. Maybe. But Wren in her arms, unconscious and fragile and not breathing. There was no probably about it. There was only definitely hurt or definitely dead. And Harper was out of time for anything except the least terrible option. She climbed onto the windowsill, held Wren tight against her chest, one arm under the girl's knees, the other cradling her head, the way you hold something when you're determined to protect it from the world, even if the world includes a 15-foot fall onto frozen earth. And Harper jumped. The impact drove the air from her lungs. Pain turned her vision white. Her ankle twisted wrong on landing, ligaments stretching past their limit. She heard something pop in her knee, felt something grind in her shoulder. But she rolled, protecting Wren's body with her own, taking the impact on her shoulder and back and hip, curling around the girl the way mothers curl around children during earthquakes, the way Jolene had curled around Harper once during a car accident when Harper was 6, before the drugs, before everything. Her mother's body becoming a shield because that's what love looked like when it still worked. Harper lay on the frozen grass. The world was sideways. The house above her burning so bright it turned night into a hellish orange day. Sirens somewhere far away. Getting closer, but not close enough. Never close enough when seconds were the difference between alive and dead. Wren wasn't breathing. Harper laid her flat on the grass, frozen blades crunching under the girl's weight. Her hands shook so badly she could barely control them. But she'd seen this before. Once at a school assembly, years ago when Chicago Fire Department came to teach CPR, and Harper had actually paid attention because even then some part of her knew that survival meant knowing how to bring people back from the edge. She tilted Wren's head back, opened the airway, started chest compressions on a rib cage so small, Harper's hands seemed huge by comparison. 30 compressions, counting desperately, feeling ribs flex under her palms, praying she wasn't breaking them, praying it didn't matter if she was. Come on, Wren. Come on. Don't leave. Please don't leave me. Not after I finally found someone worth saving. Not after you saw me when nobody else did. 30 compressions, 2 rescue breaths, tilt head, pinch nose, seal lips over lips, turning blue from oxygen deprivation. Breathe. Watch for chest rise. Breathe again. Wren's chest didn't move. Subscribe now because what happens next will haunt you. 30 more compressions. Harper's burned hands left bloody prints on Wren's pajama top. Sweat and smoke dripped into her eyes. Around them, neighbors were emerging from houses. Phones out, filming everything. Red and blue lights flashed in the distance. Sirens growing closer, but not close enough. Come on, Wren. Come on, please. I didn't jump through fire to watch you die on frozen grass. I didn't choose you over invisibility to lose you now. Please breathe. Just breathe. 2 more breaths, 30 more compressions. Harder this time, faster. Harper's training was street knowledge and desperation, not medical school. She might be doing everything wrong, but doing nothing meant watching this child die while her house burned behind them. Another breath. Another. Please. Then Wren coughed. Water and bile erupted from her mouth, her body convulsing as lungs tried to remember their job. Harper turned her on her side, supporting her head, watching as the girl's chest heaved. Her eyes fluttered open. unfocused, terrified but open, alive. Harper, her voice was barely a whisper, raw, damaged from smoke and screaming. But it was her voice, Ren's voice. Not a memory, not a ghost. A living, breathing 8-year-old girl who just survived murder. I'm here, you're okay. You're safe, my daddy. We'll find him. Just breathe, keep breathing, don't stop breathing. The crowd had grown, 40 people, all filming. Harper heard their conversations floating through the air. That kid just saved her, went into the fire. Did CPR right there on the grass. Is that a boy or a girl? Can't tell with the short hair and those clothes. Someone call the father. Someone needs to call the father. The videos are already going viral. Look, 4 million views already. Then came the sound that changed everything. Motorcycles, not one or two, hundreds. The thunder of engines roaring from every direction, converging on this house like a steel stampede. The ground vibrated. The windows of neighboring houses rattled in their frames. Car alarms triggered by the vibration started wailing up and down the block, adding their electronic screams to the growing wall of sound. Neighbors scattered as bikes poured onto the street. 10, 20, 50. More kept coming, filling every available space, blocking intersections, creating a wall of leather and chrome and barely contained fury that turned Riverside Grove from a quiet residential street into something that looked like the staging ground for a war. The patches on their backs were all the same. Hell's Angels, Chicago chapter, a single motorcycle cut through them all. Bigger than the others, louder, the engine distinct from every other machine the way a commander's voice carries over an army. The rider was massive, 6'4" of leather and muscle and rage so intense it seemed to warp the air around him. He pulled off his helmet, and Harper recognized the face she'd been hearing through floorboards for 2 weeks. Iron. Caleb Hendricks, Ren's father, the Hell's Angel whose daughter was lying on the grass in Harper's arms, covered in soot and coughing up smoke, but alive because a homeless stranger had chosen to run into fire instead of away from it. Iron's eyes found Ren first. Something broke in his face. Then his eyes found Harper, a stranger, a kid who shouldn't exist, who shouldn't be here, who had no right to be holding the most important thing in his world. His hand moved to his waistband, to the gun. Who the hell are you? And why were you in my house? 1,000 bikers closed in around them, a circle of leather and judgment with no exit. And Harper knelt on the frozen grass holding Ren against her chest, knowing that the next words out of her mouth would either save her life or end it. The motorcycles kept coming, not dozens, hundreds. The sound was nothing like traffic. Traffic had rhythm and gaps and the promise of eventual silence. This was a wall of noise, a living thing. 1,000 engines screaming from every direction at once until the frozen November air vibrated in Harper's chest and the ground beneath her knees trembled, like the earth itself was afraid of what was arriving. She knelt on the front lawn holding Ren against her body. The girl's breathing had steadied into something ragged but real. Smoke still rose from the house behind them in thick columns that blotted out the early evening sky and turned the streetlights into orange smears. Embers drifted like fireflies made of destruction. The heat at Harper's back was enormous, pressing against her scorched jacket-warming skin that was already blistered in places she hadn't noticed yet because adrenaline was still doing its work. Neighbors had gathered on the sidewalk. 30 of them. 40. Phones raised recording everything. Harper could hear fragments of their voices cutting through the motorcycle thunder. That kid just pulled her out of the window. Did CPR right there on the grass. Is that a boy or a girl? Can't tell. Look at those burns. Somebody call the father. Somebody needs to call the father right now. The first bike stopped at the curb, then another, then 10 more. Then they stopped counting because counting was pointless when the number exceeded anything the street could hold. Motorcycles filled the road, the driveways, the yards of neighboring houses. Riders dismounted in synchronized movements that came from years of riding together. Brotherhood built on codes Harper didn't understand but could feel in the way they moved. Coordinated, purposeful, dangerous. The patches on their backs were all the same. Hell's Angels, Chicago chapter. The Death Head logo repeated across a sea of leather like a warning written in a language everyone understood. One bike cut through the center of them all, bigger than the rest, the engine deeper, the sound distinct from every other machine, the way a wolf's howl carries over the pack. The rider was massive, 6'4" at least, leather and muscle in a kind of controlled fury that seemed to warp the air around him the way heat warps a highway in summer. He pulled off his helmet, and Harper recognized him from the photographs inside the burning house. The man in every picture. The face behind every voice she'd heard through the floorboards for 2 weeks. Iron. Caleb Hendricks, president of Hell's Angels Chicago chapter. Wren's father. The man whose basement Harper had been living in while he slept 20 feet above her head. Iron's eyes found Wren first. Something broke in his expression. Not softened. Broke. The way a dam breaks when the pressure behind it exceeds everything the structure was built to hold. Fear so raw it looked like physical pain. Like watching your own heart get ripped from your chest and held in front of your face so you could see it still beating. Then his eyes found Harper. A stranger. A kid covered in soot and burns and blood holding the most important thing in his world. His hand moved to his waistband, to the gun Harper had always known would be there. His voice cut through the roar of 1,000 idling engines and the crackling flames and the chaos. Quiet, controlled, deadly in the way that quiet things are always more dangerous than loud ones. Who the hell are you? And why were you in my house? 1,000 bikers closed around them. A circle of leather and chrome and judgment that left no exit, no escape, no possibility of running even if Harper's legs could carry her. She was surrounded by men who solved problems with violence and loyalty in codes she would never fully understand. But she was also holding the only thing keeping her alive. The 8-year-old girl who'd fed her crackers in the dark and called her friend when the whole world had called her nothing. Harper's voice came out stronger than she expected, cutting through the rumble of engines and the crackle of consuming wood and the distant sirens that were finally getting close enough to matter. I was in your basement. I'm homeless. I was looking for somewhere warm, that's all. Iron's jaw clenched so hard the muscle jumped beneath skin weathered by years of riding under open sky. His hand stayed near his waistband, near the gun she couldn't see, but knew was there the way prey knows when predators are close. My basement. For how long? 2 weeks. The crowd murmured. 1,000 witnesses. 1,000 judgments forming in real time. Harper heard their whispers like wind through dead leaves. 2 weeks. Living there the whole time. He didn't know. How does someone hide in your house for 2 weeks? One of the bikers stepped forward, older. Gray beard streaked with white. Leather vest worn soft with decades of use. His name was Deacon. Harper would learn that later. Right now, he was just a man with sharp eyes and a phone in his hand. Boss, you need to see this. Deacon turned the screen toward Iron. Shaky video footage showed Harper jumping from the second-story window with Wren in her arms, showed her hitting the frozen ground hard, rolling to protect the small body cradled against her chest, showed her doing CPR with hands that left bloody prints on unicorn pajamas, showed her mouth moving in words the video didn't capture, but everyone could read in the desperation of her body language. Please, come on, don't leave, breathe. The timestamp said the video had been uploaded 7 minutes ago. The view count was already past 100,000 and climbing in real time as they watched. 200,000, 300,000, going viral while they stood there, while smoke billowed into the November sky. While neighbors kept their phones raised and recording everything, Iron watched the video twice. His expression was unreadable, carved from something harder than stone. Then another biker called out from near the burning house. Boss, this fire was set. I can smell the accelerant from here. Gasoline. This was not an accident. Someone tried to kill your daughter. The crowd erupted, voices shouting, accusations flying like shrapnel, rage building in a closed system with nowhere to go but out. But Iron's attention stayed locked on Harper. His eyes moved from the phone screen to her face, really looking at her for the first time, seeing past the soot and burns and torn jacket, seeing a 14-year-old kid who had just done the impossible. You said you saw someone running from the back door. Harper's mouth went dry. She'd been so focused on Wren, on the CPR, on keeping an 8-year-old heart beating that she'd almost forgotten the most important detail. I saw someone running from the back of the house right when the fire started, wearing a leather vest, your patch, your colors. The words landed in the assembled crowd like grenades with the pins already pulled. Silence. complete in total. Nothing but burning wood and distant sirens and 1,000 men processing the possibility that one of their own had tried to murder a child. Then Iron's voice, so quiet it was almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying than shouting ever could. You're saying one of my brothers tried to burn my daughter alive. It wasn't a question. It was a death sentence looking for an address. I don't know who it was. I just saw the vest. Your colors. Someone who had access. Someone who knew the house. Iron turned to face the assembled thousand. A sea of leather and chrome and loyalty that had just been poisoned by betrayal. His voice carried across them like thunder rolling over flatland. Listen up. Someone in this club just tried to kill my 8-year-old daughter. Someone locked her in her room and lit that house on fire and walked away while she burned. And I am going to find out who. The sirens were close now, fire trucks rounding the corner. Red lights painting everything in shades of blood and warning. Police cars right behind them. The video on social media was exploding past 5 million views. Iron pulled a younger biker close, whispered something urgent. The man nodded and disappeared between the motorcycles and leather-clad bodies like smoke through fingers. Then Iron turned back to Harper. His expression had shifted. Not softened exactly, changed, calculating something she didn't understand yet. You're coming with us. Why? Because you're the only witness. Because my daughter trusts you. His eyes swept across the assembled bikers, lingering on faces Harper couldn't see. And because if someone in my club wants her dead, they might want to eliminate witnesses too. Is this protection or am I under arrest? Depends. Iron leaned closer, his voice dropping so only Harper could hear. On whether you're telling me everything. But understand this, kid. If I find out you had anything to do with that fire, anything at all, I will make sure they never find your body. Are we clear? Crystal, and I'm telling you everything. The EMTs rushed toward them, professional voices calling commands, hands reaching for Ren, checking vitals, asking questions Harper barely heard through the ringing in her ears. They loaded Ren onto a stretcher, oxygen mask covering her small face. Harper felt something tear in her chest watching them take her away. But one of the bikers in the back of the crowd caught her eye as the ambulance doors closed. The man's vest was damp at the hem. His hands were too clean for someone who'd supposedly been working on motorcycles all day. And when he saw Harper looking, his face did something it shouldn't have done. Something that lasted half a second but was long enough. Fear, recognition, guilt. Then the man turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of leather and suspicion before Harper could say a word, before she could point him out, before anyone else noticed. The traitor was still here, still watching. And now he knew that Harper had seen his face. Subscribe now, because what happens next will shatter everything you think you know about loyalty and blood and the lengths a father will go to protect his children. The Hells Angels clubhouse sat on the outskirts of Chicago behind chain-link fence and enough razor wire to fortify a military installation. Harper had never been more terrified in her life, and she had spent 3 months being terrified every single day. 20 motorcycles escorted her there in a convoy that moved through city streets like a steel serpent. Deliberate and deadly. Iron rode up front. Harper sat in the back of a truck driven by a silent biker who hadn't spoken a single word during the 15-minute drive, just kept his eyes on the road and his hand near something under his jacket that Harper desperately hoped wasn't a weapon. They'd left Ren at Northwestern Memorial Hospital with half a dozen club members standing guard outside her room. The doctor said she would survive. Smoke inhalation, minor burns, trauma that would take years to process, but alive, breathing on her own, calling for Harper even as they sedated her for the night. Now Harper sat in a metal folding chair in the center of the clubhouse's main room, surrounded by 40 bikers who looked at her like she was either a hero or a threat. Maybe both. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and motor oil and barely controlled violence. Iron stood directly in front of her, arms crossed over a chest that looked capable of crushing bone if he chose. Behind him, a wall covered in photographs, club members, bikes, runs and rallies across the country, a family Harper didn't belong to, a brotherhood built on loyalty she'd never understand. Start from the beginning, every detail. Why were you in my house? Harper's mouth was dry. Her burned hands throbbed through the bandages the EMTs had wrapped around them in the ambulance. Her ankle, probably sprained from the jump, sent jolts of pain up her leg every time she shifted her weight. But she told the truth. All of it. The cold that drove her to break in. The desperation of 3 months on Chicago streets after watching her mother die blue-faced in a supermarket bathroom with a needle in her arm. Hearing Wren's nightmares every night through the floorboards. The teddy bear she'd left outside a pink door with a crayon sign that said, "Wren's room, no boys allowed except daddy." The secret friendship built on crackers and juice box and flowers from Grant Park. She told them about the drawings she'd found hidden in the heating vent. Maps of the house. Exits marked in red. A figure in a Hell's Angels vest pouring liquid around the foundation. The dates circled in black marker so many times the paper had torn through. She told them about the smell of gasoline, the choice to run into flames instead of away. The door locked from the outside. The CPR on frozen grass with hands that left blood on unicorn pajamas. The bikers listened in absolute silence. Some expressions softened as she talked about Wren feeding her in the dark. Others hardened with suspicion, perhaps wondering if this was an elaborate con, a long game played by someone too young to be that calculating. When Harper finished, Irons stared at her for what felt like an eternity. Minutes stretching into hours, stretching into lifetimes, spent under the gaze of a man who'd built an empire on knowing when people were lying. "So, my daughter has been feeding a homeless stranger for 2 weeks, someone I didn't know existed, living in my house without my knowledge." "Yes, sir, and you expect me to believe you had nothing to do with that fire?" "I'm telling the truth." "Truth is flexible, kid. I've heard 1,000 lies from people swearing on their mother's graves they were innocent." "My mother's dead." The words came out quiet. Final. Harper met his eyes and didn't blink. "Overdosed in August. I don't have anyone left to swear on." "But I'm telling you what happened. That's all I can do." Something flickered in Irons' expression. Not quite sympathy, maybe recognition. The look of someone who'd known loss and understood that some truths were too ugly to fabricate. "What was her name? Why does that matter?" "Answer the question." Harper flinched at the command in his voice. "Jolene. Her name was Jolene. I don't know if she ever told me her real last name. She used different names, different IDs. We moved a lot. The temperature in the room changed, not physically. Something else. Something that moved through the assembled bikers like a current through water." Harper felt it before she understood it. Deacon. The older biker with the gray beard. The one who'd shown Iron the viral video at the scene. He stepped forward from his position against the wall. His eyes had gone sharp, focused in a way that made Harper's skin prickle with the particular kind of awareness that had kept her alive on streets designed to kill her. Jolene. He said the name like he was testing its weight, like a prayer, like a curse. Brunette. Tattoo of a phoenix on her left shoulder blade. Sang old country songs when she was happy. Used to say, "darling," like it was the only word that mattered. Harper's blood went cold despite the warmth of the room, every nerve in her body firing at once. "How do you know that?" Deacon looked at Iron. Something heavy passed between them. Something old and complicated and carrying the weight of years neither man had spoken about. "Boss, we need to talk." "Private, no." Iron's jaw clenched. "Whatever you're going to say it here, in front of everyone. We don't have secrets when someone just tried to kill my daughter." Deacon hesitated. Then he pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos with fingers that were not quite steady, stopped on one, turned the screen toward Harper. The photograph showed a woman maybe 15 years younger, healthier, smiling in a way Harper barely recognized because she'd only ever known the version of her mother that came after the drugs had eaten everything good. But it was her. It was Jolene, standing next to a younger version of Iron, both of them on motorcycles. Her mother's arms wrapped around his waist, her head tilted against his shoulder like she belonged there. Like that was the only place in the world where everything made sense. Harper couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. Couldn't process what she was seeing because processing it meant rewriting everything she thought she knew about who she was and where she came from. "Where did you get that?" Iron took the phone, stared at the photo. The color drained from his face like someone had opened a vein and let all the life pour out. "That's not possible. Jolene left Chicago 16 years ago. Said she was pregnant but didn't want club life for her kid. I gave her money, told her to call if she needed anything. She never did. Pregnant. Deacon's voice was careful. Too careful. The voice of a man diffusing something that could detonate at any second. With your kid. Boss. The room erupted. Voices shouting over each other. Questions firing like rounds from a weapon nobody could see. But Harper could only hear the rushing in her ears. Like ocean waves. Like blood pumping too fast through veins that were trying to understand what was being said. Iron looked at Harper like he was seeing her for the first time. Really seeing her. His eyes moved across her face, cataloging features she'd never thought about. The shape of her nose, the line of her jaw, the way her eyes sat in her skull. Doing mathematics that didn't require a calculator. How old are you? 14. When's your birthday? March 7th. Iron closed his eyes. The air left his lungs in a sound that was not quite a word, not quite a prayer. Something in between that carried the weight of 16 years of not knowing. March 7th, Jolene called me in June 15 years ago. Said she'd had the baby. A girl said she was clean and handling it. I offered money, support, whatever she needed. She refused. Said she didn't want the club touching her kid. I respected that. Sent money anyway through a third party for years until about 4 years ago when it started getting returned. Thought she'd gotten stable. Made something of herself. She didn't. Harper's voice came out bitter. Angry in a way she hadn't let herself be angry in months because anger required energy, and energy required food, and hope, and things she didn't have. She got worse. Pills, then needles. We lived in motels when we were lucky, cars when we weren't, shelters when she could fake sobriety long enough to pass intake. She'd disappear for days and I learned to steal food. Lie to social workers. Be invisible so they wouldn't put me in foster care. The clubhouse had gone silent. Every biker staring, witnessing, processing the impossible. Their president had just discovered a daughter. A 14-year-old daughter who'd been homeless for months while he lived 20 miles away, completely unaware she existed. A daughter who'd saved his other daughter's life. The DNA test results came back 48 hours later in a plain manila envelope that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, 99.98% probability of paternity. Harper was Iron's daughter, Ren's older sister. And whoever had tried to kill Ren had tried to kill both of Iron's children without knowing the second one was sleeping 20 feet below the fire they'd set. But that revelation was still 2 days away when the clubhouse door burst open and a young biker practically fell through the entrance, out of breath, phone in hand, eyes wild with the kind of urgency that made every man in the room reach for something. Boss, it's the hospital. Ren's room. Someone tried to get past security, one of our guys. He had a syringe. Said he was bringing her medicine. But the nurses didn't authorize anything. We detained him. Iron's voice went to a place Harper had never heard a human voice go. Below anger, below rage, to the cold, dark place where killing became mathematics instead of emotion. Who, Coyote, your road captain, the one who recruited 15 brothers last year, the one who organized the last 3 runs, the one you trusted with route planning and security protocols. 12 road captains in the chapter. 12 suspects from the security footage that showed a figure in a road captain's patch approaching the house at 4:32 that afternoon. Now 11. Bring him here. Now. 10 minutes later, Coyote entered the clubhouse flanked by 2 massive bikers who looked ready to break him in half with a word and a nod. He was mid-40s, heavily tattooed, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes, the kind that made Harper's survival instincts scream in a voice loud enough to drown out everything else. Brother, this is a misunderstanding. I was trying to help, bringing Ren her medication like a good uncle should. The nurse says no medication was ordered. Then the doctor screwed up the paperwork. Simple mistake. But sure, make me the villain because I'm the one asking logical questions. What questions? Coyote's eyes found Harper and something cold moved behind them. Something calculating. Something that saw an opportunity in the chaos and reached for it with both hands. Questions about this homeless kid nobody has ever heard of who conveniently appears in your house for weeks without anyone knowing. Then magically she's the hero when a fire starts. That's textbook manipulation, boss. Classic long con. The room divided. Harper could see it happening in real time. Some bikers nodding along with Coyote's logic. Others looking skeptical, remembering the video. The brotherhood fracturing along fault lines of trust and suspicion that had probably existed long before tonight. The video doesn't lie, Deacon countered from his position against the wall. We all saw her jump from that window. We all saw her do CPR. Those burns on her hands are real. Burns are easy to fake. Coyote spread his hands in a gesture of reasonableness that felt rehearsed, practiced. The performance of innocence by someone who'd had time to prepare. Self-inflicted injuries to sell the story. She gets herself hurt just enough to look believable. Saves the girl. And suddenly she's family. Next thing you know, she's asking for money, a place to stay, club protection. It's a grift as old as time. Harper had spent 3 months on streets that taught her to read people the way other kids read textbooks. She knew when someone was performing. She knew when words were weapons dressed up as logic. And she knew that staying silent while Coyote built his case would get her thrown back onto the streets or worse. There's another explanation. Her voice cut through the argument. Not loud, but sharp, edged with a kind of certainty that came from having nothing left to lose. All eyes turned to her. What if someone wanted Ren dead because of what she represents? Iron's vulnerability, his weakness. Like everyone keeps saying, but what if there's more? What if whoever set that fire knew about me too, knew I was in that basement, knew the connection? What connection? Coyote scoffed. You're a random street kid. My mother was Jolene. Harper's voice grew stronger, fed by the desperate clarity that had carried her through fire and CPR and the impossible mathematics of keeping an 8-year-old alive on frozen grass. The woman who left Chicago 16 years ago, pregnant with Iron's child. The woman who kept me away from club life until she died. The woman who maybe died because someone wanted to make sure I stayed lost. She watched Coyote's face as she said it. Watched the way his expression changed for just a fraction of a second. A micro movement most people would miss. But Harper had survived 3 months by noticing micro movements, by reading the space between what people showed and what they felt. And what she saw in that fraction of a second was fear. When did your mother die? Iron's voice was barely controlled. August 19th, Deacon was already pulling something up on his laptop, fingers flying across keys. August 19th. That's the same day Coyote was in Chicago. Said he was visiting family. His sister in Lincoln Park. I was visiting family. Coyote's voice cracked at the edges. Just barely. Just enough. My sister lives in Lincoln Park. Your sister moved to Phoenix 2 years ago. Another biker spoke slowly from the back of the room. Recognition dawning across his face like sunrise over bad news. I helped her load the moving truck. Remember, July, 90-degree heat. We packed that U-Haul together and you complained the whole time about losing her to the desert. Silence. The kind that has weight, the kind that presses down on everyone in the room like gravity just got heavier. Show us your phone, Iron said. Excuse me, your phone, call history, text messages, prove you weren't near that house today. This is ridiculous. I'm not showing you anything. I have rights. Club bylaws say when a brother's family is threatened, all protections are suspended pending investigation. Deacon's voice was iron-given sound. Show us the phone, Coyote, or refuse and confirm every suspicion in this room. Coyote's hand moved toward his waistband. 3 bikers drew weapons faster than Harper could blink. The room erupted in shouting, chairs scraping, bodies moving. Harper dove behind a table as Coyote pulled his weapon, not aiming at the bikers with guns trained on him, aiming at Harper. Nobody move. Coyote's voice was different now. No more smooth manipulation, just raw desperation stripped of everything except the need to survive the next 30 seconds. This kid ruins everything. Everything. Iron was supposed to be broken after the fire, supposed to step down from president. I was supposed to take over. Lead this club the way it should be led. But this little rat had to play hero. You killed Jolene. Iron's voice was sub-zero. You tried to kill my daughter. You tried to kill my other daughter. Jolene was never supposed to come back. Coyote screamed. She contacted me 3 months ago. Said she needed money. Said her daughter was sick and she needed help. She remembered me from the old days, thought I'd help her out. Instead, I gave her a hot dose, made it look like another junkie relapse. Easy, clean, problem solved. Harper couldn't breathe. The room tilted. Her mother. Her mother had been murdered, had been reaching out for help, trying to connect with the father Harper never knew existed, and it had killed her. Coyote had injected her with poison and walked away while Jolene died alone in a supermarket bathroom, and Harper waited outside wondering why her mother was taking so long. And Ren. Iron's voice shook with fury that could level buildings. Kill or break you. Make you step down. Simple plan. I'd take over, make this club strong again. But I didn't know about the kid in your basement. Didn't know Harper existed until she jumped out that window with Ren in her arms. The door was locked from the outside because I wanted no survivors, no witnesses, no complications. The guns didn't waver. Coyote was surrounded, trapped, confessed to everything, but his weapon was still pointed at Harper's head. Here's what happens. I walk out of here. Anyone tries to stop me, and I put a bullet in this kid's brain. Then I disappear. Mexico, Canada, doesn't matter, you'll never find me. You won't make it to the door, Iron said. Try me. The standoff stretched. 40 armed bikers, one traitor, one hostage. Harper could see the calculations behind Iron's eyes, the impossible mathematics of protecting your daughter versus letting a murderer walk free. Then Harper's phone buzzed. Everyone heard it in the tense silence, the notification tone cutting through the room like a blade. Who's texting you, kid? Coyote demanded. Harper didn't answer, couldn't answer. Check it, right now, show everyone. With shaking hands, Harper pulled out her phone, the cracked, barely functional thing she'd taken from a donation bin months ago. The message glowed on the screen, visible to everyone close enough to read it. Coyote isn't working alone. Neither am I. Already at the hospital with Ren. Clock's ticking, little niece. The message came from a different, unknown number, but attached was a photo that made Harper's heart stop beating. Ren's hospital room. Ren asleep in bed, oxygen mask on her face. And standing over her wearing a visitor's badge and a Hells Angels vest was Deacon. The older biker with the gray beard, the one who'd been helping them all along, the one who'd shown them the security footage, the one who'd backed Harper's story from the beginning, the one who'd been playing both sides. Iron saw the photo. His face went white. Deacon, no, not you. Deacon, standing physically in the clubhouse, smiled, not sadly, not with regret, with the cold satisfaction of someone watching a plan that had taken years finally reach its conclusion. He pulled out his own phone, showed them a live stream of Ren's hospital room. The footage showed someone standing over her sleeping body. I'm not actually there right now. Deacon set his phone on the table where everyone could see the feed. That photo was taken an hour ago when I went to check on her. But my partner is in that room right now, with a syringe full of the same thing we gave Jolene. And if Coyote doesn't walk out of here free and clear, Ren gets a hot dose straight into her IV, painless, quick, tragic. Iron's voice broke. I trusted you. I trusted you with everything. I've made you. Deacon's voice stayed calm, too calm, the calm of someone who'd planned this moment for years and was finally watching it unfold. I taught you everything about being a man, being a leader. Made you president of this chapter when you were too young for the responsibility. And you got soft. First, Jolene made you weak. Then you chased her memory to Colorado. Came back with not one, but 2 daughters. Letting sentiment cloud judgment. The club doesn't have room for weakness. How many others? Iron's voice was barely human. More than you think, less than you fear. But enough to make sure Ren dies if you make the wrong choice. So decide, brother. Coyote walks free, and we all forget this happened. Or your daughter dies and you live with that choice for the rest of your life. You have 30 seconds. The clock on the clubhouse wall ticked. 29, 28, 27. And Harper realized with horrible certainty that unless she did something someone she loved was going to die, either she stayed silent and let 2 murderers walk free, or she spoke up and Ren paid the price. 24 seconds. But Harper had spent 3 months surviving on Chicago streets. 3 months learning that when powerful people played games with lives and guns and threats, the invisible ones had advantages nobody anticipated. She was still invisible to them in the ways that mattered, still underestimated, still the kid nobody expected to be 3 steps ahead. 21 seconds. Wait. Harper's voice cut through the tension like a blade through silk. I have something to say. Shut up, kid. Coyote pressed the gun harder against her temple. Deacon, you said you took that photo an hour ago, right? You said your partner is in Ren's room right now, ready to inject her if we don't let Coyote walk. Deacon's expression flickered. Just a fraction of uncertainty breaking through the mask of control. That's right. Then you're lying. The room went absolutely silent. Harper's voice grew stronger, fed by the desperate clarity that came from 3 months of surviving by noticing details others missed. Because Ren is wearing different pajamas in your photo. The hospital gave her green ones when they admitted her. Standard pediatric issue. I watched them put them on her before they loaded her in the ambulance. The ones in your picture are blue. Her unicorn pajamas from home. The ones she was wearing before the fire. Every biker's eyes shifted to Deacon's phone, to the photo displayed on screen, then back to Harper. The IV bag in your photo says saline solution, clear label, blue writing, but the news crew that filmed outside Ren's room 20 minutes ago showed different footage on the evening broadcast. She's on glucose now for her blood sugar. Different bag, yellow label, different IV stand entirely. You're using an old photo from when you visited this afternoon, pretending your partner is there right now, faking a hostage situation that doesn't actually exist. Iron's hand was already on his phone, dialing hospital security with fingers that shook with rage and hope in equal measure. This is Caleb Hendricks. Check my daughter's room right now. Don't announce yourself. Just look inside and tell me exactly who's in there. 15 seconds of silence that felt like 15 years. Harper could hear her own heartbeat, could feel Coyote's hand trembling against her head, could see Deacon's carefully constructed plan unraveling in real time, thread by thread, lie by lie. Then Iron's expression hardened into something carved from stone and fury, in the particular kind of relief that comes when you discover your child is alive and the person who threatened her is a liar. 2 guards at the door, 2 nurses inside doing vitals, no visitors. No one else has been in that room except authorized medical staff for the last 45 minutes. You lying piece of Coyote started. The clubhouse door exploded inward, not with violence, but with overwhelming numbers. 50 more bikers poured through the entrance, the ones who'd been stationed outside, supposedly on perimeter duty, but actually listening through cracked windows and recording everything on their phones. They'd heard every word, every confession, Coyote admitting to murder, Deacon confessing to decades of betrayal, 2 men they'd called brothers revealing themselves as monsters, while a 14-year-old girl dismantled their scheme with the observational skills she'd learned by being invisible. One of them, a massive biker with arms like old-growth timber, spoke directly to Deacon. You taught us loyalty was everything, taught us brotherhood was sacred, taught us codes and honor and protecting our own. Guess you forgot to practice what you preached. The guns in the room shifted, realigned, no longer pointed at each other in confused standoff. Now 40, 50, 90 weapons aimed at 2 traitors surrounded by a brotherhood they had catastrophically underestimated. Coyote's gun wavered at Harper's head. I'll still kill her. I'll put a bullet in her brain before any of you can stop me. Harper dropped. Just let her legs collapse completely, using her smaller size and gravity to slip straight down through Coyote's grip like water through fingers. The gun discharged. The sound exploded in the enclosed space, deafening, ringing through Harper's skull like church bells made of violence. But the bullet went high, punching through ceiling tiles, embedding itself in wooden rafters that had seen decades of secrets. Then Iron moved. Harper had never seen anyone move that fast. Her father. Because that's what Iron was. What biology and circumstance and a DNA test would prove in 48 hours. He crossed the distance in 2 explosive strides. Disarmed Coyote with efficiency learned from decades of violence that served a purpose. Had him face down on concrete in under 3 seconds. Other club members swarmed Deacon before he could draw his own weapon, pinning him with coordinated force that came from years of operating as one body with many hands. It was over in less than 10 seconds. Harper lay on the cold concrete floor, ears ringing, tasting dust and motor oil, watching her father kneeling on the back of the man who'd murdered her mother, who'd injected Jolene with poison and called it mercy, who'd walked away while a woman died alone in a bathroom and her daughter waited outside not knowing the world had just ended. Iron twisted Coyote's arm at an angle that made something audible happen. Coyote screamed. How many others? Another twist, another sound, another scream. 5. 5 total. Coyote gasped through agony. Me, Deacon, 3 others. We had it planned for months. Kill Ren to break you, force you to step down, take over leadership, make the club strong again without sentiment and weakness dragging us down. But that kid, his eyes found Harper through pain and fury, and the particular hatred of someone whose plans had been destroyed by the person they considered least significant. That homeless little rat ruined everything. 5 traitors in a club of 1,000 members, 995 who'd stayed loyal, who'd chosen to stand with their president even when it meant turning against brothers they'd ridden with for years. Federal agents arrived within the hour, taking statements, making arrests. Coyote and Deacon were charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, or arson, and attempted murder of a minor. The 3 other conspirators were identified through phone records and security footage within 24 hours. 2 prospects and a veteran member who'd been with the club 8 years, all of them cooperating once they realized the game was over. And in the middle of all of it, in the case of arrests and statements and federal badges and the viral video that had now crossed 20 million views, Iron stood in front of Harper in the clubhouse parking lot while 1,000 bikers watched. He looked at her the way you look at something you lost a long time ago and never expected to find. The way you look at a miracle when you've stopped believing in miracles. The way a father looks at a daughter he didn't know existed until she saved his other daughter's life and exposed the rot in his brotherhood and survived a gun to her head by noticing the color of hospital pajamas. They think you're a boy, he said quietly. The videos, the news, everyone calling you he, the brave young man, the homeless boy hero. Harper looked down at herself, soot-covered, burned, hair cut short because long hair was dangerous on the streets, clothes stolen from men's donation bins because they were warmer and drew less attention, invisible in every way that mattered. Does it matter? Iron shook his head slowly. Not to me, not to anyone here. He turned to face the assembled 1,000, brothers who'd been through fire tonight, figurative and literal, who discovered betrayal in their ranks and purged it in the space of hours because a 14-year-old girl had the courage to tell the truth and the eyes to catch a liar. This kid, Iron's voice carried across the parking lot. This kid saved my daughter, exposed 2 traitors, survived a gun to her head, and she did it all while being invisible, while being nobody, while being the kind of person this world steps over and forgets. He put his hand on Harper's shoulder. The first time he'd touched her, the weight of it enormous, heavy with meaning and promise, and the beginning of something neither of them had words for yet. She's not invisible anymore. She's not nobody. She's my daughter. Both of them are. And whoever comes from my family next will answer to every single one of you. The 1,000 didn't applaud, didn't cheer, didn't make the kind of noise that movies show when the hero is revealed. They did something else, something that meant more. They stood, every single one, 1,000 men rising to their feet in the November cold, in silence, helmets held against their chests, eyes forward, the way soldiers stand when something sacred passes. Not applause, recognition, the silent acknowledgement of courage by men who understood what courage cost because they'd paid that price themselves. Harper stood in the center of 1,000 standing men and felt something she hadn't felt in 3 months. In years before that, when her mother was more ghost than parent, in maybe her entire life, visible, truly, completely, impossibly visible. And somewhere in the pocket of her burned jacket, her phone buzzed with a message she wouldn't read until much later, from a number she didn't recognize. Words that would turn everything upside down one more time before this story was over. You have her eyes, Jolene's eyes. She used to take you to the pier every summer. Did you know that? Before the drugs, before she chose Iron's world over her own family. I never forgot. I've been watching you your whole life, little niece. And now that you've made yourself visible, you've made yourself findable. See you soon. The ghost was coming, and Harper had just shown her exactly where to look. The safe house sat 40 miles outside Chicago, behind 60 acres of Indiana farmland and 3 layers of security fence that would have made a military installation jealous. Razor wire caught morning light along the perimeter. 12 cameras covered every approach road and every angle of the property. Motion sensors lined the tree line. 20 bikers rotated shifts around the clock. Armed, alert, watching the cornfields and the gravel roads and the gray November sky like men expecting war. Harper stood on the front porch of the farmhouse, watching frost melt off the railing in the weak morning sun. 2 weeks since the fire. 2 weeks since she'd pulled Ren from a burning house and performed CPR on frozen grass. 2 weeks since she'd discovered her father was the president of the Hells Angels Chicago chapter, and her mother had been murdered by a man who'd smiled at her while hiding a syringe behind his back. 2 weeks of learning what it felt like to have a roof and meals and people who noticed when you walked into a room. 2 weeks of trying to understand that the word family applied to her now, that it wasn't something she watched through other people's windows anymore, that the bed upstairs with clean sheets and a pillow that smelled like laundry detergent was hers, that the toothbrush in the bathroom was hers, that the jacket hanging by the door with her name written inside the collar in Iron's careful handwriting was hers. All of it hers, and all of it felt like wearing someone else's skin. Her phone buzzed, the 7th message that day. She didn't flinch anymore, couldn't afford to. Your body runs out of adrenaline eventually, and all that remains is the cold arithmetic of knowing something bad is coming and you'll deal with it when it arrives. The photo showed Harper at age 7, gap-toothed and grinning, standing next to Jolene at Navy Pier with the Ferris wheel behind them, cotton candy in one hand, her mother's fingers laced through the other. Jolene was smiling, really smiling. The kind of smile Harper had almost forgotten existed because by the time her memory got reliable, the drugs had already eaten the good parts and left only the husk. The message beneath the photo read, "You have her eyes, Jolene's eyes. She used to take you to the pier every summer." Did you know that? Before the drugs, before she chose Iron's world over her own family, before she forgot where she came from. I never forgot. I've been watching you your whole life, little niece. Waiting, Harper deleted the message with steady hands. She'd stopped shaking 3 days ago. Not because the fear had gone, but because fear was a resource and resources needed to be managed. Rationed, spent only when they could buy something useful. The door opened behind her. Iron stepped out carrying 2 mugs of coffee, black, the way they both drank it now. A small discovery in the strange, awkward process of learning to be father and daughter without a manual or a history or anything except DNA and the shared understanding that someone out there wanted both of them to suffer. Another one? Iron asked, nodding at the phone in her hand. 7th today, photo from when I was 7. Navy Pier. She knows things she shouldn't know. The FBI is working on it, tracing the routing, looking for patterns in the metadata. They won't find anything. Harper's voice was flat, not defeated, analytical. The voice of someone who'd survived by reading situations clearly and acting on what she saw rather than what she hoped. Whoever this is, she's too careful, too patient. Been planning for years, not weeks. Every message routes through different servers. Every photo comes from a different source. She's not making mistakes because she's had a long time to learn how not to. Iron's jaw tightened. The ghost called you niece in the messages. If she's Jolene's sister, we're trying to track down your mother's family tree. But Jolene used so many different names, different identities over the years. It's like trying to find a ghost chasing a ghost. Maybe that's the point. Harper took the coffee, held it between both palms, feeling the warmth seep into skin that still carried burn scars from the fire, fading pink lines across her knuckles and fingers that would probably never fully disappear. Maybe she wants us to know she's out there without being able to stop her. Psychological warfare. Make us paranoid until we're seeing threats in every shadow and jumping at every sound. You're thinking like someone 3 times your age. I'm thinking like someone who survived by being 3 steps ahead. Harper looked at the cornfields stretching flat and frozen to the horizon. But that's the problem. I survived by being invisible. Now I'm the most visible person in America. 60 million views on that video. My face is everywhere. Every news outlet, every social media feed. She doesn't have to find me. She just has to wait for me to make a mistake. You're not making any mistakes. You're protected here. Protected or trapped. Harper turned to face her father. We can't stay here forever. Ren needs to go back to school. She's been having nightmares again. Different ones now, not about the car fire that killed her mother. About this fire. About being locked in her room, about the door not opening. She needs routine. She needs normal. And hiding in Indiana farmland while someone sends me photographs of my dead mother isn't normal. It's just existing. What are you suggesting? That we stop waiting for her to come to us? That I make myself visible on purpose? In a way she can't resist. Absolutely not. You're 14 years old. I'm 14 and I saved your daughter from a burning house. I'm 14 and I exposed 2 traitors in your club by noticing the color of hospital pajamas. I'm 14 and I survived 3 months on Chicago streets where grown men froze to death in doorways. Harper's voice gained strength with each word. Not anger, certainty, the particular kind that came from knowing your own capabilities because you'd tested them against situations that should have killed you and didn't. I know you want to protect me, but I'm not the one who needs protecting right now, Ren is. And the longer we sit here waiting, the longer this ghost has to plan something we won't see coming. Iron stared at his daughter, the instinct to keep her safe warring with the knowledge that she was right. That waiting was just giving the enemy time to build something worse. That defense without offense was just a slower way to lose. 48 hours. We planned this right. Every detail, every contingency, and the second I think you're in real danger, we pull you out. Understood, understood. They spent 2 days planning. The location was obvious. Grant Park, where Harper had found the purple flower she'd given Ren weeks ago during their secret friendship in the dark. Open space. Multiple sight lines. Easy for bikers to position themselves in civilian clothes without looking suspicious. Saturday afternoon, maximum crowd. The ghost wouldn't try anything obvious in front of hundreds of witnesses, but she'd be there, watching, studying, looking for the moment Harper moved somewhere quieter. Somewhere that felt safe but wasn't. On Friday morning, Harper posted to social media for the first time since the video went viral. A photo of Chicago's skyline at sunset. The caption simple and direct. 2 weeks in hiding is long enough. Coming home tomorrow. Grant Park, 2 p.m. Time to stop being afraid. Time to be visible. For all the invisible kids out there, this one's for you. Within an hour, 50,000 likes. Within 3 hours, national news outlets were running segments. Homeless hero returns to Chicago. Brave teenager refuses to hide. The narrative was perfect. Exactly what they needed to draw the ghost out of whatever shadow she'd been watching from. And somewhere Harper knew the ghost was reading every word, planning, getting ready to make her move. Saturday came cold and clear. Harper dressed carefully. The leather vest Iron had given her, worn openly over her jacket. Hell's Angels prospect patch visible on the back. Let the ghost see it. See that Harper wasn't alone, wasn't unprotected, but was still willing to stand in the open. Still willing to be found. The drive to Chicago took 40 minutes. Iron drove in tense silence. 30 bikers were already positioned throughout Grant Park in civilian clothes, forming an invisible perimeter that covered every entrance and exit and bench and pathway. At 2 o'clock, Harper walked through crowds of families and tourists and Saturday joggers, hyper aware of every face, every person who looked too long or turned away too quickly. The November air was cold, but the sun was out, and the park was full of people living normal lives. Pushing strollers, walking dogs, throwing frisbees, doing all the things people do when nobody is trying to kill them. That's when she saw the woman. Not in the park itself, in the reflection of a store window across Michigan Avenue. Mid-30s, dark hair falling past her shoulders, same bone structure Harper had seen in photographs of a younger, healthier version of Jolene. Standing at the entrance of a coffee shop with a cup in one hand and a phone in the other. Not hiding, not running, just standing there. Watching Harper the way someone watches a chess piece they've been waiting to move. The woman smiled, mouthed 2 words across the distance. "Hi, niece." Harper's blood went cold. Then her phone buzzed. Nice try. But did you really think I'd be stupid enough to walk into your obvious trap? I'm not here for you, Harper. Not today. Check your security cameras at the safe house. Check Ren's room. Right now, Harper's fingers went numb. Not from cold, from the particular kind of fear that bypasses your nervous system and goes straight to your bone. She pulled up the security app, cycled through cameras with hands that had stopped shaking days ago, but were shaking now because this was different. This was Ren. Living room, clear. Kitchen, clear. Hallway, clear. Ren's room, empty. The bed made. The window open. Cold November air pushing the curtains inward like the house was breathing through a wound. And on the pillow sat a single piece of paper with a message written in black marker. Trade you for her. Come alone to the address below, or I inject her the same way I injected Jolene. You have 1 hour. Harper ran. Didn't care about the plan. Didn't care about being subtle. Didn't care about anything except the 8-year-old girl who'd seen her when she was invisible and fed her crackers when she was starving and called her friend when the whole world called her nothing. She found Iron by the fountain, showed him the phone, the empty room, the message. His face went white, the color of a man watching his world collapse for the second time in 2 weeks. That's impossible. We have 20 men at that location. Security on every approach, cameras on every angle. She got past all of it. Harper was already moving toward the truck. The ghost played us, got us focused on Grant Park, every biker, every camera, every pair of eyes pointed at me while she walked through the back door 40 miles away. We go tactical, full force, surround the address she gave. Overwhelming numbers, she'll see you coming. Harper pulled free of his hand on her shoulder. She's been watching us for weeks. She knows how you think. She knows how the club operates. She knows the convoy, the formation, the way you approach a building. She'll see 100 bikes from a mile away, and Ren will be dead before you get within 100 yards. You're not going in alone. I don't have a choice. Harper's eyes burned, but she refused to let tears fall. Not now. Not when tears would cost time, and time was the only currency that mattered. She's my sister, my family, and this is my fault. I'm the one who suggested the trap. I'm the one who made myself visible. I'm the one the ghost wants, so let me be what she wants. Iron looked at his daughter, 14 years old, carrying weight no child should have to bear. Every protective instinct he'd developed over 2 weeks of learning to be a father screamed at him to lock her in the truck, and handle this himself. But the mathematics were brutal, simple, undeniable. If Harper didn't show up alone, Ren died. If Iron brought backup, the ghost would see. Ren died. If they waited, Ren died. 50 bikers positioned 3 blocks from the warehouse. You wear a wire, we listen to everything. The second, and I mean the absolute second, I think you are in real danger, we breach. We come in hard and fast, and God help anyone standing between us and my daughters. He paused. His voice cracked along a fault line Harper had never heard break before. If something happens to you, if I lose both my daughters because I let you walk into this, I won't survive it. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Harper understood. She also understood she didn't have a choice. The warehouse district looked like every abandoned part of every city Harper had ever hidden in. Empty buildings with windows like eye sockets, staring at nothing. Graffiti covering brick and layers of forgotten names and broken promises. Lots filled with rusted machinery and the corpses of industries that had died decades ago. The kind of place where people disappeared and nobody asked questions because asking meant caring, and caring about the forgotten required energy this city didn't have left. Harper walked alone down the center of the street. The wire under her vest transmitted her heartbeat and breathing to Iron and 50 brothers waiting 3 blocks away, close enough to respond if she signaled, far enough that the ghost wouldn't see them. The distance felt like crossing an ocean, like the gap between who she'd been and who she was becoming, like the space between invisible and visible that she'd been navigating her entire life without knowing it had a name. The warehouse address matched an old textile factory. 5 stories of red brick and shattered windows. The front door hung open. creaking in wind that smelled like winter and rust and the particular sadness of places that used to matter and don't anymore. Harper stepped inside. Darkness swallowed her whole. I'm here. Her voice echoed off concrete and steel and decades of emptiness. I came alone, like you asked. Let Ren go. Footsteps from above, then a voice, a woman's voice, calm, controlled, carrying the kind of patience that comes from years of planning for exactly this moment. Did you really come alone, Harper? Or is Daddy Dearest waiting 3 blocks away with his little army? I can see the wire, by the way, the bulge under your vest, but it doesn't matter. I expected that. I would have done the same thing. Come upstairs, 3rd floor. And Harper, don't try anything heroic. I have a syringe pressed against Ren's neck. Same compound I used on your mother. One push and she's gone in 90 seconds. Painless, they say. But you'll never know for sure, will you? Harper climbed the stairs, each step creaking under her weight, loud enough for Iron to hear through the wire, loud enough to count, to track her progress, to coordinate the response if everything went wrong. The 3rd floor opened into a large, empty space where machines had once hummed with productivity and purpose. Now just absence. Windows on all sides providing sight lines in every direction. The kind of defensive position that was nearly impossible to approach without being seen from a quarter mile out. In the center of the room, Ren sat in a metal folding chair. Hands zip-tied behind her back, duct tape covering her mouth. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. But she was alive, conscious, terrified in the way that no child should ever have to be terrified. And when she saw Harper, she tried to scream through the tape, tried to warn her or beg for help, or maybe just say the name of the person who'd saved her from fire and was walking into something worse to save her again. Standing behind Ren with one hand on the child's shoulder and the other holding a syringe pressed against her neck was a woman Harper's brain recognized even though they'd never met. Mid-30s. Dark hair like Jolene's, same cheekbones, same eyes that had looked out from Harper's mother's face before the drugs hollowed everything out and left only hunger and need. Family resemblance written in genetics, in the architecture of bone and the way mouths formed the same expressions. Unmistakable, undeniable. This was Jolene's sister, Harper's aunt, the ghost made flesh. Hello, Harper. The woman's voice was soft, almost gentle. The voice of someone who'd rehearsed this moment so many times it had worn smooth, like river stone. I'm Sparrow, your mother's sister, your aunt, and I've been watching over you for a very long time. Harper couldn't speak, could barely breathe. The syringe at Ren's neck caught afternoon light filtering through broken windows. The liquid inside amber and deadly and one squeeze away from ending everything. Why? The word came out hoarse. Scraped raw by smoke damage that hadn't fully healed and fear that was making her throat close around every syllable. Justice. Sparrow's eyes never left Harper's face. Your mother abandoned our family for a biker, got pregnant, ran away, chose Iron's world over her own blood. Our parents died waiting for her to come home. Dad first, heart attack in the kitchen. He'd been calling her number every Sunday for 9 years. It just rang and rang. Mom lasted 3 more years. Cancer. Spent her last months asking me if Jolene had called, if I'd heard anything, if the baby was okay. The baby. That's what she called you. She never even knew your name. The words hit Harper like physical blows, each one landing in places she didn't know were vulnerable. I took care of them alone, Sparrow continued. Every doctor's appointment, every hospital visit, every night sitting in a chair next to a bed watching someone I loved disappear one piece at a time, while the whole family whispered about Jolene, worried about Jolene, prayed for Jolene. The prodigal daughter everyone wanted back while the daughter who stayed became furniture, became invisible, the responsible one, the one nobody needed to worry about because she was handling it. She was fine. She was always fine. Harper recognized something in those words. Recognized it the way you recognize your own face in a mirror or held at an angle you've never seen before. The ache of being invisible. The fury of being overlooked. The slow, poisonous understanding that the world sees you exactly as much as it chooses to, and no amount of being good or being there or being reliable will make them look your way, if they've already decided you don't matter. When Jolene finally reached out 3 months ago, Sparrow's grip tightened on the syringe, called me out of nowhere, 16 years of nothing, and then a phone call at 2 in the morning, crying, saying she needed money, saying her daughter was sick, saying she was sorry, her voice cracked. The first break in the controlled calm. Sorry. 16 years, and she says sorry like that fixes burying our parents alone. Like that fixes watching mom die asking for a daughter who couldn't be bothered to come home. I told Coyote about her. He was the one who knew people in Chicago, the one who said he could make her go away again. I thought he meant scare her, convince her to disappear. I didn't know he would kill her. Harper took a step forward, hands visible, non-threatening. But you kept going after he did, because it didn't fix anything. Killing Jolene didn't bring my parents back, didn't erase 16 years of being the forgotten daughter. And then you saved Ren, became a hero, got accepted into the club, got everything Jolene was supposed to have. And I realized, Sparrow's voice went hard, sharp as the needle she held against an 8-year-old's neck. I realized that killing you would be too easy, too quick. I needed you to understand first. Needed you to see what it costs to be visible when you're someone people can actually find and hurt and destroy. So you took Ren to prove a point. I took Ren to give you a choice, the same choice Jolene had. Family or the club, your blood or your found family. The sister connected to you by genetics and grief and Jolene's memory. Or the little girl you saved, the father you barely know, the brotherhood built on violence. Choose. I'll let one of you walk out of here. Just one. You decide which. Harper looked at Ren, 8 years old, crying silently behind duct tape, eyes wide with the kind of terror that leaves marks on a person long after the bruises heal. Innocent in every way that mattered. And Harper understood what Sparrow was really offering. A test. A way to prove that Harper was just like Jolene. That she'd choose Iron's world over blood family. A way to justify everything Sparrow had done. Every murder, every threat, every moment of terror she'd inflicted in the name of grief she'd been carrying alone for so long, it had become the only thing she knew how to feel. The wire under Harper's vest transmitted everything. Iron was hearing this. 50 bikers were hearing this. They'd be moving into position, surrounding the building, preparing to breach. But would they be fast enough? Could anyone be fast enough when a syringe took 1 second to empty and 90 more for its poison to work? There's a third choice. There's no third choice. There's always a third choice. Harper took another step forward. You taught me that. You and Jolene both. Sparrow's expression flickered. You survived after she left. You took care of your parents alone. You learned to be invisible, to be forgotten, to be the responsible one while everyone worried about your sister. I know what that feels like. I was invisible for 3 months, sleeping in basements and eating from trash cans and learning to make myself so small the world forgot I existed. Stop talking. I know how it changes you. Harper took another step, close enough now to see the individual tears tracking through makeup that had been applied carefully. Mascara running in dark lines like cracks in a mask that had been holding for years and was finally breaking apart. How it makes you angry at everyone who doesn't see you. How it makes you want to scream at strangers on the street because they walk past you like you're not even there. Like you're furniture. Like you're nothing. I said, stop. But Ren saw me. Harper's voice dropped to something softer, more intimate. The voice you use when talking to someone standing on a ledge. Not the ledge of a building, but the ledge of a decision they can't take back. Ren saw me when nobody else did. I was invisible in her father's basement, and she found me in the dark. Fed me crackers and juice boxes and called me friend. Not because I deserved it, not because I'd earned it, because she understood what it felt like to be scared and alone and different. Sparrow's hand was shaking now, the syringe trembling against Ren's neck, the mask crumbling. You called me little sister in your messages. Not niece, sister, because that's what you wanted it, isn't it? Not revenge, not justice, not Jolene's memory avenged. You wanted family. Someone who understood what it felt like to lose her. Someone who saw you, really saw you. Not as the responsible daughter or the sister who stayed or the woman who buried both parents alone while the world worried about an addict who disappeared. Just as a person who's been hurting for so long, you forgot what it feels like to not hurt. Shut up. But the words had no force behind them, no command, just the broken sound of someone whose defenses had been built from grief and anger and loneliness, and were being taken apart not by force but by understanding. Harper extended her hand, slowly. The way you approach a wounded animal that has teeth sharp enough to kill you, but eyes that are asking for help. I see you, Sparrow. I see you hurting. I see you angry. I see you grieving for a sister who died years before the overdose actually killed her. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry Jolene left you. I'm sorry you watched her destroy herself from a distance. I'm sorry you buried mom and dad alone. I'm sorry our family failed you so badly that this seemed like the only answer. The warehouse was silent, just the sound of Sparrow's ragged breathing and Wren's muffled crying, and wind moving through broken windows and Harper's heartbeat transmitting through the wire to 50 men who were holding their breath 3 blocks away. You can kill us both, Harper whispered. You probably will. But it won't bring Jolene back. Won't bring Grandma and Grandpa back. Won't make the pain stop. Won't make you visible in the way you actually want to be visible. It'll just make you a murderer. Another person erased by grief, another ghost. She was close enough to touch Sparrow now, close enough to see the shaking in hands that had planned this moment for months and were discovering that plans don't survive contact with someone who understands your pain because they've lived inside it. Or you can put down the syringe, let Wren go. And I promise you, I swear, on Jolene's memory, I will remember you. I will come see you. I will sit with you and we will talk about her together, the good parts, the parts from before the drugs, the parts that made her someone worth missing for 16 years. Sisters, both of us, because that's what we are. We're both Jolene's daughters. We both lost her. We both have to figure out how to survive that loss without becoming the worst version of ourselves. The syringe pressed harder against Wren's neck for one terrible second, hard enough to dimple skin, hard enough that Harper could see the exact point where the needle would enter if Sparrow's finger moved 1/fraction of an inch. Then Sparrow's hand dropped. The syringe clattered to the concrete floor, amber liquid spreading in a puddle that caught light and looked almost beautiful if you didn't know what it was. Sparrow sank to her knees, and the sound that came out of her was not crying. It was something deeper, something that had been buried for years under control and planning and rage, and was finally erupting because someone had seen through all of it to the grief underneath. Harper moved fast, ripped the duct tape from Wren's mouth, cut the zip ties with the pocket knife Iron had given her. Wren threw her arms around Harper's neck and held on with the desperate strength of someone who'd been drowning and had finally found solid ground. It's okay, little sister. You're safe. I've got you. I'm not letting go. Behind them, Sparrow kept breaking. Decades of invisible grief pouring out in sounds that seemed to come from somewhere below human language, below words. From the place where loss lives when you've carried it so long it's become part of your skeleton. Bikers stormed through every entrance 30 seconds later. 50 men with weapons drawn and fury written across faces that had survived betrayal and fire, and the particular horror of discovering that family was both the strongest and most fragile thing in the world. They surrounded Sparrow before she could move, before she could reach for the syringe, before she could do anything except curl into herself and break under the weight of everything she'd been carrying alone since the day her sister walked out the door and never came back. Iron reached Harper and Wren first, dropped to his knees, arms wrapping around both daughters with the desperate force of a man who'd come within seconds of losing everything twice in 2 weeks and was holding on now like he could protect them from the world through sheer will if he just held tight enough. Are you hurt? Either of you? Did she? We're okay. Harper's voice was muffled against his shoulder. We're okay, Dad. The first time she'd called him that. Dad, not Iron, not Sir, not the president of the Hells Angels Chicago chapter. Dad. The word felt strange in her mouth, foreign and familiar at the same time. Like remembering a song you heard as a baby, the melody living in your bones even when your brain forgot the words. Iron looked at Sparrow being restrained by 2 of his brothers. Still sobbing, still breaking apart on the concrete floor of an abandoned factory. His expression carried everything at once, rage at what she'd done, grief for what she'd lost. and something that might have been understanding. The faint, terrible recognition that if his own life had gone differently, he might have ended up in the same place. Alone. Invisible. Desperate enough to destroy the people closest to him just to make someone notice he existed. "Don't hurt her," Harper said. "She kidnapped your sister. She helped kill your mother. She terrorized you for weeks." "I know." Harper met his eyes. "But she's also my aunt. She's family. She's sick and alone, and she's been invisible longer than I was. She needs help. Not more pain. She needs someone to see her the way Ren saw me when I was hiding in your basement. She needs someone to remember she's a person, not just a villain." Iron stared at his daughter for a long moment, then at Sparrow, then back at Harper. "You have a bigger heart than anyone I've ever met. You know that. I learned from watching you with Ren. Family is worth saving, even when they're broken, especially when they're broken." Police arrived, then paramedics, then news crews who'd somehow found the location and wanted their footage, their headlines, their piece of the story that had started with a viral video of a homeless kid doing CPR on frozen grass and had become something nobody could have predicted. But Iron's brothers formed a wall between the cameras and Harper, protecting her from the spotlight she'd never asked for. Sparrow was taken away in an ambulance, not a police car, psychiatric evaluation first. The courts would eventually find her mentally unfit to stand trial. Decades of untreated trauma and grief had broken something fundamental in her ability to distinguish between justice and destruction. She would spend time in a facility, not a prison, getting help, slowly learning to be visible in healthy ways instead of violent ones. The ghost was gone. In her place was just a woman named Lenore who'd loved her sister too much and hurt too deeply and needed someone to see her pain before it consumed her completely. Months passed. Winter released its grip on Chicago the way winter always does. Reluctantly, in stages, melting into mud drying into something that might eventually be spring. Trees remembering they knew how to make leaves. The city thawing under March sun that felt like the world was being given another chance. Harper stood in the parking lot of Riverside Grove Community Center on a Saturday morning, watching 20 homeless kids circle a disassembled motorcycle engine laid out on a tarp. The bike was old, a 1995 Harley Sportster donated by one of the brothers. It ran, or it would run once these kids learned how to put it back together. She was 15 now. Her birthday had come and gone 2 weeks ago with a celebration that felt like something from a movie about someone else's life. Cake with her name on it. Presents from men with calloused hands and criminal records who showed love through practical gifts because words had never been their strongest tools. Motorcycle gear. A leather jacket with patches she'd earned over months of proving she belonged. Books about engineering and mechanics. Tools of her own because Iron said every rider needed their own tools, needed to know how to fix what broke. Ren had given her a drawing, not the prophetic nightmares from before the fire. Something different, something that made Harper's throat tighten every time she looked at it. 2 girls standing in front of a house, holding hands, smiling under a sun that looked warm and safe and permanent. Sisters, and underneath in Ren's careful handwriting. "We saved each other." It hung on Harper's bedroom wall where she'd see it every morning. "Okay, everyone," Harper's voice carried across the parking lot, clear and confident in a way it hadn't been 6 months ago. "This engine is basically a dinosaur. Simple, reliable, perfect for learning. Today we're going to take it apart. Not because you need to know how motorcycles work, but because I want to teach you something more important than mechanics." A girl named Finch raised her hand, 13 years old, 4 months homeless. Hollow eyes that Harper recognized from her own reflection 6 months ago. "What's that?" "That broken things can be fixed." Harper met Finch's eyes and held them. That just because something looks destroyed doesn't mean it's done. That with the right tools and the right help and the right patience, you can take something people have given up on and make it run again. She caught Iron's eye where he stood in the back, watching, making sure the kids stayed safe. Behind him, Ren was showing younger children how to hold wrenches, chattering about engines and pistons with the enthusiasm of a kid who'd found something to care about that didn't involve nightmares. Harper visited Sparrow once a month. The visits were hard, awkward, painful in the way that healing always hurts worse before it hurts less, but necessary. Sparrow was getting better, slowly. Learning to talk about Jolene without rage filling every word. Learning to grieve properly instead of turning grief into weapons. Learning that being seen didn't require being terrifying. When class ended, most of the kids drifted away. Back to shelters, back to streets, back to wherever they went when the world wasn't watching. But Finch lingered. Harper, can I ask you something? Always, the video, the one of you saving Ren from the fire, was it as scary as it looked? Harper thought about lying, about making herself sound braver than she'd been. But these kids deserved the truth. They'd been lied to enough by a world that promised safety and delivered nothing. It was terrifying. I thought I was going to die. I thought she was going to die. And for a few minutes on that frozen lawn doing CPR, I didn't know if any of it would be enough. But you did it anyway. I did it anyway. Because being invisible is safe. But being visible is how you save people, how you make things change, how you stop being the person things happen to and start being the person who makes things happen. Finch nodded slowly, processing. Then quietly, thank you for seeing us. After class, Harper and Iron and Wren drove to the cemetery. They visited on the 7th of every month. March 7th, the day Harper was born, Jolene's grave was simple. Small headstone, fresh flowers always present, replaced weekly by people Harper didn't know, but who apparently remembered her mother from before the drugs took everything. Today, Harper brought daisies, Jolene's favorite according to Sparrow. One of the small true things they'd started sharing during their careful, painful visits at the facility, building a bridge between them, one memory at a time. Harper knelt beside the grave. Wren knelt beside her, adding her own flowers with the serious concentration of a child who understood death better than most adults and treated it with the respect it deserved. Hey, Mom. Harper's voice was soft. The voice you use when you're talking to someone who can't answer, but you hope is listening somewhere beyond the silence. It's my birthday. 15. I found Dad, found Wren, found a family I didn't know I needed. I'm teaching homeless kids how to fix motorcycle engines in a community center parking lot, living in a house with heat and food and people who notice when I come home at night. I'm visible now, Mom, really visible. She touched the headstone, cold marble warming under her palm. Sparrow's doing better? She asks about you, about what you were like before everything got bad. I tell her stories, the good ones, the ones from before, the cotton candy at Navy Pier, the songs you used to sing when you thought I was asleep. I think it helps her, helps us both. We're learning how to be family even though we started as ghosts haunting each other. Wren added softly, we miss you, Aunt Jolene. Harper talks about you all the time. You sound like you were brave and kind. Thank you for keeping Harper safe until she could find us. They sat in silence for a while. Then Harper stood, brushed off her jeans, took Wren's hand. Come on, little sister. Let's go home. That night, the house was full. Brothers who'd stood with them through fire and betrayal and fear. People who'd proven that loyalty meant more than patches and promises. Wren fell asleep on the couch clutching the teddy bear Harper had given her months ago. The one with the missing button eye that had started everything. Late that night, after everyone had gone and the house was quiet, Harper stood on the porch with Iron. Father and daughter looking at Chicago lights in the distance. Both of them thinking. Both of them grateful in ways they didn't have words for yet. You did good today. With those kids. With everything. I learned from you, Harper said. You could have sent me away that first night. Could have believed I was a con artist like Coyote said. Could have protected yourself instead of protecting me. But you chose to see me. You earned that chance. Iron put his arm around her shoulders. Every single day you earn it again. They stood in comfortable silence. Then Harper's phone buzzed. She checked it. Not a threat, not a ghost. A message from Wren's teacher about an essay the 8-year-old had written for class. Subject line. Your daughter's hero. The essay was simple, written in handwriting that wobbled with effort but carried truth in every misspelled word. My hero is my sister Harper. She saved me from a fire, but she also saved me from being alone. She taught me that scary things can happen, but we can be brave anyway. She taught me that family is people who choose to love you. She taught me that being a hero isn't about being strong. It's about being there when someone needs you. I want to be like Harper when I grow up, brave and kind and visible, because she taught me that hiding doesn't keep you safe. Love keeps you safe. Family keeps you safe. Being seen keeps you safe. I love my sister. She's the best hero ever. Harper read it twice, then handed the phone back to Iron with tears running down her face for the first time since the night she jumped from a burning building with a child in her arms. Tell her I love her too, and that she's my hero right back. The next Saturday, Finch approached Harper after class. Urgent, nervous. Harper, there's a girl outside. She's been sleeping in the alley behind the center for about a week. Won't talk to anyone. Won't take food. Just sits there, scared and alone and trying to be invisible. Harper's chest tightened. She knew that look. Had worn it herself not so long ago. Where is she? Finch led her to the alley. There, curled against a dumpster in clothes too thin for March, was a girl. Maybe 12. Dark hair tangled and dirty, eyes hollow with hunger and fear, and the desperate hope that if she made herself small enough, the world would forget to hurt her. Harper knelt, slowly, the way you approach someone who has every reason to run. Hey, I'm Harper. You hungry? The girl's eyes flickered up, met Harper's for 1 second, then dropped. But she nodded, small, barely visible. But there, come inside with me. Let me teach you something about engines, and about being visible. The girl hesitated, fear warring with hunger, warring with the desperate loneliness of being invisible for too long. I was like you, Harper said. 6 months ago, I was sleeping in a basement and stealing food and trying so hard to disappear that I almost did. But someone saw me anyway. An 8-year-old girl fed me crackers in the dark and called me friend when I was nobody. And it changed everything. The girl looked up. Girl really looked, seeing Harper not as a threat but as someone who understood. Will you teach me how to be visible without getting hurt? That's what we do here. Harper extended her hand. We teach invisible kids that broken things can be fixed. The girl took her hand, weak grip, trembling fingers. But her eyes held something new. Not hope exactly, not yet, but the space where hope could grow if someone gave it room. Harper led her inside, where Iron and Wren were cleaning tools, where 20 other kids who understood what it meant to be forgotten were learning that they mattered, where a community of broken people was teaching each other how to be whole. The cycle continued, one invisible kid at a time, one hand extended, one choice to be seen instead of hidden, one decision to run into the fire instead of away from it. And Harper, who'd been the invisible girl in the basement just months ago, was now the one doing the finding, the one extending hands, the one teaching that visibility wasn't weakness, but strength. That being seen was how you survived when the world tried to erase you. She looked at the new girl, saw herself reflected in those hollow, frightened eyes, and smiled. Welcome, Harper said. Welcome to being visible. It's scary at first, but I promise you it's worth it. You're worth it, and we're going to prove it together.